Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. And this is the day that the Lord has made. And we should rejoice and we should be glad in it. So good to see you this morning and welcome to Hope TV. I'm Dewey Smith. I am the chief hope dealer here at the Hope TV. And we're so excited that you've carved out a portion of your Friday and to allow us to bring you and to provide you with the daily dose of hope. It's incredibly exciting. It really is, just to have this top opportunity to come and to share and just to, have a moment of fellowship and, just to be thoughtful and to be reflective and, to be inspirational about what we believe and what we think. And I'm just honored. I really, really am that you've carved out a portion of your day this first Friday in May to spend with us here at Hope TV. And good morning, everybody who's already tuning in and bringing your comments. Good morning, everybody. Ola Currington Johnson, God bless you. She's tuning on Facebook. Welcome. Everybody who's watching my Apple TV, Roku, Twitch, Amazon, Fire TV, Facebook, YouTube, the various websites, whether it's E. Dewey Smith website, House of Hope website, House of Hope West Point, our newest streaming platform. Some of you know, some of you don't know, we launched a new ministry even in the pandemic in the month of February in the West Georgia area in Douglas County. And this Sunday at 9 o'clock, you'll be seeing that service streamed throughout all the platforms as well. So I'll be preaching at the Atlanta church at 7:30 and then the West Point church at 9 and then the Atlanta church at 10:15. So you get a chance to see those services and what I preached this past week at West Point. And so I'm excited that you tuned in. So check us out. And also those who watch it through Hope TV through that website. So we're excited that you're here and I appreciate you. Drop us a line. Let us know the city and the state and the country from which you are viewing. It means a lot to us. Very, very important. We'd love to hear from you. Our producers take it very seriously. And I want to thank all of our Hope TV team for what they do. We have about 43 people who they put a lot of effort, time. I mean, editors, producers, administrators, graphic artists, camera crew. I mean, producers, associate producers. I mean, it's a lot that goes into this. Those who host the shows, it's a lot. And I want to thank them for their support. And because without them making this vision come to reality, Hope TV wouldn't be what it is. It was just a thought for me 14 months ago. And now to see it come to reality, it's a blessing. And I'm grateful to them for all of the different shows. We have 32 different shows now that we're airing. We had 2 new shows this week alone. One called Gospel Buzz, which is a great show about the gospel music industry and guests, and you get a chance to hear from gospel music artists and some ministers as well. Very powerful. Listen to some music as well, and new music that's been released. Very powerful. We're glad to be airing that program. We also have another one, a wonderful show that I'm excited about. The different holy. We're trying to do holistic content. This one's called Cooking with Flavor with KL. It started this past Tuesday at 11, and it's going to air tomorrow again at 1. Cooking with Flavor with KL. That's Keith LeCount. And so some of you home and want to know how to cook. I mean, he does everything, baking, cooking, you name it. And I think you're going to really, really enjoy that show. And cooking shows are real big, and this guy's a major cook. So I want you to check it out. I think you'll be blessed by it. And if you're watching through a platform that will allow you to subscribe, to like, to comment, or to share, very, very important. Very important that you do that. Every time you subscribe, you can get notifications as to when new content is uploaded. We're streaming all day long. It's funny. I was talking to a colleague yesterday who was saying, "Man, when you guys started, people were talking about, man, why is he gonna have programs every day? Man, why do they keep airing so much? Every time you turn on, they're airing something." So it's kind of negative, talking kind of negative. Now it's not the same people. Man, what are they doing? How can we get ours? So you just never, you just gotta follow the vision and stick with it. So if you want to get the notifications as when our content is uploaded, subscribe to those platforms and thank me later, because we got some great content that's being produced. Those like buttons help us with our algorithms, our social media engagements, as well as our impressions. When you like it, that's major for us, because it helps us to get into more platforms and helps us to be on a recommended list. Sometimes you're watching YouTube or something, you see other videos pop up. How does that happen? It's based on likes, it's based on trends. So it puts us in different types of territories when you like it. So hit the like button. Very, very important. Help us to spread this particular platform and the Hope TV. Your comments are preeminently important, particularly in times like these when I'm doing these types of teaching sessions. Those comments help us with our impressions as well. So comment, talk back to me. And then your share button, my goodness, what could we do without share? Because when you share it, that really lets us get exponential growth opportunity. So share that link. Watch parties, share. Share the website link, share the YouTube link, share the Facebook link, have a watch party, share it. Let people know that you got some good content that's coming on. And I certainly would thank you for that in advance. Now listen, I'm gonna get right into our lesson today. We've been in deeper dive. Good morning to you, Francis. Thank you so much. Thank you. God bless you. I appreciate those kind words, and thank you for your support. I'm excited about today, and I need y'all to ride with me today, because today is going to be kind of heavy. So I need you to ride with me today, and I've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. We've been leading up to this. We're in deeper dive, and we're really doing what's called systematic theology. Some of you who've been to Bible college or seminary, or been some serious students of the Bible and theology. When I say systematic theology, you know what I'm talking about. When you go to seminary or attend a theological institution, you got whole degree programs in systematic theology. And so what I'm sharing with you today, and what I've been sharing for the last couple of weeks, are things that we would have in those classes. The only difference is we can only do so much in 30 or 40 minutes once a week, but the same kind of content, same kind of conversations. And every now and then on Fridays, I push it a little harder than others, because I want to make sure that it's practical and it's understood. Good morning to you, Tina. God bless you. And so I push a little hard sometimes, back up. So today is a very powerful conversation, and I'm going to just stay with me, because I'm going to be giving you a lot of information today. And don't be, don't be intimidated by it, or don't log it off because you don't think it's relevant. I think it's very relevant if we want to grow and go deeper. So this show is called A Deeper Dive. It's my podcast as well. So this is not morning dew, that's devotional, and that's more inspirational to build us up. This is Deeper Dive. This is inspirational, but also kind of scholastic and and thoughtful, and so a little deeper. And so I need your help today, because we're going to go there today, all right? And we're going to be here for a minute because I kept looking at it, and there's no way I could do this in one session. So I'm not going to try. We've been talking about the providence of God, okay? We've been talking about the providence of God really probably for the past month and a half, probably, if not longer. The providence of God. And the providence of God, we gave you a general definition. It is simply God is continually involved. That's simply what it means. And I'm not going to get happy right here. God is continually involved with all created things in a way that he keeps them existing. Lord Jesus. God is continually involved with all created things in a way that he keeps them existing and maintaining the properties with which he created them. All right? So providence is God's continual involvement. We looked at preservation. We looked at concurrence. We looked at three ways that God is continually involved. One was by preservation. One was by concurrence. And then now the theme, there's a sub-theme under this, is called government, how God governs. God is continually involved through concurrence. God is continually involved through preservation. But God is also continually involved through government. So the overall theme is the providence of God, but the sub-theme, I guess, today is govern. How does God govern? And we've been on government. How does God govern? We've been doing this probably last month. We've been on this maybe 2 months or so, the providence of God. And now, we talked about governance. We talked about providence. We talked about predestination. And I kind of teased this. Good to see you, Brenda Jordan. I kind of teased this a couple of weeks ago. And we talked about John Calvin. And we talked about predestination. We talked about Martin Luther. Okay, we talked about Martin Luther and the Reformation. I talked to you a little bit about John Calvin and Calvinism, how that relates to predestination. Now today we're gonna deal with an argument. We're gonna deal with some theological perspectives, right, about providence. That has really been a debate now for 500 years. And it's going to make it relevant. It's going to be two schools of thought about how does God lead us, about how is God involved, about providence. And so there are two names I'm going to give you today. One I've talked to you about before. Another one I'm going to introduce to you, okay? I've talked to you about this guy, John Calvin, okay? So this is systematic theology. It's also the church history. John Calvin. John Calvin comes along in the 16th century, as it began, 16th century AD. And John Calvin is a disciple of Martin Luther. Remember I told you a couple weeks ago, Martin Luther is the guy who starts what's called the Protestant Reformation. Martin Luther wrote 95 Theses and hung on the church there in Germany because he was upset with how the mother church was handling things. And Martin Luther, kind of developed this whole doctrine of the priesthood of believers. And so the Protestant Reformation, you had Catholics, that was a mother church at the time. It was Martin Luther who started Protestantism. And I dealt with that a little while ago. And after Martin Luther, one of his proteges or mentees was called John Calvin. And John Calvin, some of you have heard of the denomination Calvinism. Calvinism, that's a denomination. That is a derivative of people who I'm a Calvinist. Today, you meet people like I'm a Baptist, I'm a Methodist, I'm a Pentecostal. You have some people say I'm a Calvinist. I'm a Calvinist. You also have people who say that I'm a Lutheran. I don't know if you've heard of these denominations. You don't just have Baptists and Methodists and Episcopalian and Church of God in Christ, AME, CME. Those are denominations. But you also have what's called Lutherans, and you have Calvinist. And so the Lutherans come from Martin Luther. Calvinists come from John Calvin. Y'all with me so far? Now, John Calvin is also one of the leaders. Thank you. That's right. Thank you, Tasha. So John Calvin is one of the leaders of the Reformation period. And the Reformation is when they broke away from the Catholic Church. What really happened was Martin Luther got mad because they were doing a lot of things that were just off doctrine, where people felt they had to go to a priest to pray. In the Catholic Church in the early centuries, they would sell indulgences, which basically meant if you sinned, they had a whole list of prayers that you had to go and pray for had to go pay for a particular prayer. They called selling indulgences. Martin Luther like, no, this ain't wrong. So he really talked about how some things were off doctrinally, and this whole concept of the priesthood of all believers, meaning now we can pray to God for ourselves, not having to pay the priest. All that came through the Reformation. It's called a Protestant Reformation. So you got Martin Luther was the first. Lutherans come from him. All right. Then after him, you got John Calvin. You got people today who are Calvinists. So you check me out. You got people right now who are Lutherans and who are Calvinists, and they come from those gentlemen. They believe in what was espoused by Martin Luther and John Calvin. All right. Now hold on to that for a minute. John Calvin. All right. Disciple of Martin Luther, leader of the Reformation period. All right. But there's another name I'm going to introduce to you today that's very, very important. And this is Jacobus Arminius. Jacobus Arminius. Jacobus Arminius. Now, Jacobus Arminius actually comes on after John Calvin. When John Calvin dies, Jacobus Arminius is really like 4 years old. So he didn't know John Calvin. Calvin died in 1564. Jacobus Arminius comes along in 50. He's born in 1560, so the mid part of the 16th century A.D. Right? But here's what is interesting. Jacobus Arminius, when he matured, early on he was a Calvinist. So he followed the teachings of John Calvin. To be honest with you, John Calvin's son-in-law became his professor. So that's how Jacobus Arminius was connected to John Calvin. He was taught by John Calvin's son-in-law. So early on, he was a Calvinist. But then as he got older and he got involved in theology, he read through the book of Romans, and he came with some different views that he disagreed with Calvin. And to this very day, family, this theology is affected in incredible ways. Even you and I, right now. Many of us don't know this, but the positions that were argued and espoused by John Calvin and Jacobus Arminius affects all of us right now. Affects all of us right now to this very day. Almost 500 years later, right? We are still affected by what John Calvin taught and by what Jacobus Arminius taught. Y'all ready? Y'all ready to ride? All right. Now, so here is the issue. There are the two topics we're going to discuss today. One is called Calvinism. The other is called Arminianism. All right? Are y'all with me here? So you got Calvinism on one side, Arminianism on the other side. And you might not think these words, some of you might be totally disinterested. You might not think this has nothing to do with you and your belief system. Yes, it does. I'm going to show you how. Even to this day, even though these gentlemen have been dead 500 years, Arminius, to this very day, 400 years from me, to this very day, we're still going back and forth and debating their positions. Now let me jump right in. Let's talk about Calvinism. All right, right quick. Calvinism centers on the supreme sovereignty of God. And here's a word we talked about a couple weeks ago. I told you I was going to come and get this: predestination. And y'all hold on to that for a moment, because I'm going to come back to that. We're going to be right there. So Calvinism it centers on the supreme sovereignty of God. Okay, predestination. He had something called, let me break it down for you. All right, that's good, Tina. One decision can affect a domino effect. That's good. That's a good observation. Basically, Calvinism, you can kind of, in seminary, they gave us what's called the tulip acrostic. Tulip. Should have put them on the screen. Uh, that kind of explains Calvin's position. Tulip. You know, a little flower, the tulip, Tulip. I'm glad they did that because that's how I kind of got through college, memorizing stuff like that. Tulip. John Calvin's position is, if you understand the word tulip, remember that word tulip as an acrostic, and it's really right there. And I should have put it on the screen for you. Tulip. You see, first of all, it is total depravity. T, that's the acrostic. Total depravity. That human beings, that mankind, that womankind, were totally depraved. That's two. That's the T part of that acrostic. I'm going to deal with that more in a couple weeks. So T, totally depraved. Then there's U, unconditional election. T, total depravity. U, unconditional election. Then there's an L, limited atonement. Now, don't worry about these right now because I'm going to break every one of these down. I'm just giving you foundation now. Total depravity, unconditional election, limited atonement. Then you got the I, irresistible grace. I'm going to show you how this is very deep. I'm laying out for you now. Irresistible grace. Then you got P, the perseverance of the saints. Please, I'm going to be talking about this on the next couple of weeks. The tulip acrostic. So whenever you see John Calvin, just remember tulip. You know, Calvin likes tulips. Calvin bought his wife tulips. Calvin bought his daughter's tulips. Just tulip. Total depravity, unconditional election, limited atonement, irresistible grace, perseverance of the saints. That's basically the gist of Calvinism. But I got to break that down for you as we go through the next couple of weeks. I'm going to break some of it down for you today. That's tulip. Now, Arminianism is different. Even though Jacobus Arminius used to be Calvinist, he switched later on. He disagreed with some things Calvin taught, and I'm going to share with you why it's so deep. We don't hear a lot about Arminius now. Many of us don't hear a lot about Arminianism now. A lot of us hear more about Calvinism or Lutheranism, but Arminianism is deep, all right? And I'm going to share with you why. Now, what Arminianism does, it emphasizes, check this out, conditional election based on God's foreknowledge, man's free will through prevenient grace to incorporate God with atonement, Christ's universal atonement, resistible grace, and salvation. I'm giving you these right now because Calvin is more popular, really, to be honest with you. And he's more popular, but just because he's more popular does not mean he's more powerful. Let me share with you why. That's Arminianism. Okay. Now, today, you got it. Tulip. Yeah. Tulip. Without the S. Tulip. Total depravity, unconditional election, limited atonement, irresistible grace, perseverance. Tulip. Tulip. That's John Calvin. Now, Arminianism is heavy. And I need to talk to you about it. We need to go deeper. Here is why. Because Arminianism affects denominations and what we believe. I'll share with you why. All right. For instance, Methodists and Nazarenes, they are Arminian. When you study Methodism and John Wesley, who was one of the founders of John Wesley is the guy who started the Methodist Church. John Wesley, he and his brother Charles Wesley. If you study Methodism, John Wesley. And you also have people called Wesleyans, but John Wesley is the guy. So all Methodist churches, whether it's United Methodist, whether it's AME, Zion, CME, Methodism, and Nazarenes, all are Arminian, not Calvinist. Okay? Then you got Presbyterians. Presbyterians are what they call Reformed, or that's like Calvinist, right? So you got Calvinism, which is Arminian, but the argument now is called Reformed. It's got Reformed, and you got Arminianism, all right? But let me share with you why this is very deep, Arminianism, the Arminian view. It's deep because those of us, you know, my father was a Baptist. My mother came from Apostolic Overcoming Holiness Church. You know, I was a Church of God in Christ musician. So I'm hodgepodge, right? But you will find amongst Baptists, Episcopalians, Lutherans, and Churches of Christ, you'll find both views amongst them. There is no consensus, really. Um, I would say that it's a mixed bag. Some of our beliefs are Calvin. Some of us may believe more on the Calvinist side. Some of us more on the Arminian side in terms of our beliefs. Pentecostals are more Arminian. They're amongst that for the most part they're exclusively Arminian. But amongst Baptists, it depends on who you're listening to in terms of what they believe in. Episcopalians, and you'll find both views amongst Baptists, Episcopalians. And here's the funny thing: you'll find some Arminian Lutherans, which really is fascinating, because when you say Lutheran, that means that means Martin Luther. Well, Martin Luther and John Calvin were together, right? But it's funny how you got Lutherans who are more Arminian than they are Calvinists. But yet Calvinism and Lutheranism, they were connected. But you got Arminianism amongst Lutherans as well. So Baptists, Episcopalians, Lutherans, Churches of Christ, you find both views. Most Pentecostals, they're more Arminian. All right? I hope this is good for y'all. I'm trying to break it down for you. Now you're saying, okay, Pastor, this is good. Now you're telling me, so if I was made some of you who are watching who are Baptist, who are Methodist, you probably never heard of Jacobus Arminius. What does that mean, Arminian? Or somebody who's Baptist, what do you mean Arminian? Jacobus Arminian. What do you mean? What kind of view did he have? These are theological views. If I'm a Pentecostal, what do you mean by Arminian? I'm going to share with them. I'm glad you asked that question. All right? Now let me break it down for you. Y'all ready? Next slide, please. Here's a gist of Arminianism. Y'all stay with me now. Listen very carefully. Arminianism, here's what it teaches: that human freedom and real human choices are necessary for genuine human personhood. All right? Now let me give that God's providential involvement in or control of our history must not include every specific detail. Let me break all this down for you. What this simply means, Arminianism means that I got a choice, that I got human freedom, that if I don't have human choice and human freedom, I'm not a real person. Now here's why that is interesting, because it goes against Calvinism. Calvinism basically says everything is already determined. I'm going to hit that in a minute. That everything about you is already predetermined, and then you can do about it. Forget your choice. Grace is irresistible. Ain't nothing you can do about it. That's why I gave you that TULIP, the TULIP. One of the things was irresistible grace, that you can't resist it. That whatever's going to be, nothing you can do. Okay? Arminianism says, hold up. So you trying to tell me that my whole life has been determined and my choice ain't real? I don't have no human freedoms? That everything about my life has already been put on me by God? That I'm not real? Arminianism says, well, if I don't have choice or freedom, I'm not a person. I'm a robot. Arminianism says I can believe in God. I can believe that God is involved and God is in control, but that doesn't mean that God controls every specific detail that happens to me. Arminianism says, okay, I believe in God's providence, but God didn't control this shirt I put on this morning. I believe in God's providence, but when I brushed my teeth this morning, when I was in Publix or Kroger, wherever you shop, that God didn't say, thou shalt use Crest, thou shalt use baking soda. Yeah, that when you wanted to date somebody, thou shalt date them. Thou shalt get your hair cut this way. Thou shalt buy this car. Thou shalt download this music. That every detail about our lives, and that's really what the Calvinism says. I'm gonna come back to that in a moment. Arminianism says, hold up a minute. I can believe that God is providential and involved, but that doesn't mean that every specific detail or event that happens is because God did it. Arminianism says I have freedom, I have choice. Arminianism looks at when, even the Bible says, whosoever will, let him come. Arminianism says that's human choice. The day you hear his voice, harden not your heart. Arminianism says God gives us a choice. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and come in, I will come in. Come unto me, all you that labor and heavy laden, I'll give you rest. That's Arminianism. right? That's Arminian, meaning that we have choice, we have freedom. Doesn't mean what Arminianism says is God is providential, God is sovereign, but at the same time, we have a human choice and human freedoms. And that sometimes what God will do is sometimes God will respond to our human choices and our actions, and so that it'll come about where it can accomplish his ultimate purpose in the world. So Arminianism says we got human freedom, we got human. Arminianism, let me put it this way. Arminianism says you can believe that God is providentially involved and believe in human choice at the same time. Arminianism says I can believe that God saves the world, but God gives me the choice to decide on whether I'm saved. That God ain't gonna force me to be saved. That if I'm saved, it is because I have decided. We sing a song, I have decided to make Jesus my choice. That's really Arminianism. Calvinists would say you didn't make the decision was made for you. Are y'all getting this? Are y'all hearing me? So Calvinism said it's an unconditional election. It was made for you. You don't decide. You can't choose grace. It's irresistible. Calvinism says before you came here, your election was already determined, and your choice has nothing to do with it. The Arminian thought says, hold up, no. We're not robots. We're a real person, and having real personhood, we have real freedoms. We can make necessary choices, and that God does not determine every detail of our lives. But what God can do is respond to our human choices and actions and decisions, and God can make it come out where His purposes can be accomplished. Are y'all with me? So that's what the Arminian thought is. All right. Let me give you a couple more things on Arminianism right quick because I know I'm just introducing this today. All right. Y'all with me? I'm doing okay. Y'all with me so far? Y'all holler at me. Let me know y'all getting this because I know maybe y'all talk to me if you can. All right. Next slide, please. So Arminianism says this: every discrete particle, object, or person isn't a part of God's specific plan. What does that mean by that? Last night I watched the Lakers and the Clippers. Well, what was it? AD got hurt, LeBron hurt. I'm just so sick of the Lakers. And I want to cuss at the TV last night. Y'all pray for me. Arminianism says that I had a choice whether or not I want to cuss at the Lakers last night on TV. God did not preordain that on May the 7th, that E. Dewey Smith would feel like cussing at the Lakers last night as they were getting lambasted and just demolished by the Clippers. God didn't preordain that last night Anthony Davis would hurt his ankle. That wasn't a part of God's plan, y'all. Okay, be quiet, Emmanuel. Don't you start this, Emmanuel. Don't you start. I'm talking about predestination, and you starting, Emmanuel. Get out. I rebuke that spirit. I rebuke that. Get your mouth right, Emmanuel. So, Arminianism says God wasn't concerned when you chose to watch the Lakers and the Clippers last night. They ain't had nothing to do with God. That wasn't the eternal plan of God. God's specific plan did not involve whether you're gonna watch the Hawks play against the Suns. So Arminianism says the Arminian view is every discrete particle, object, person isn't a part of God's plan. It wasn't God's plan for you to give a guy your phone number or you to date child in the 12th grade. God didn't predetermine who's gonna take you to your junior prom. God got much bigger things to do than decide who you went to the prom with and were you gonna use your uncle car or your daddy car. That's not. You had a choice. What color you were gonna wear. That so the Arminian view. Are you listening? That's what Arminian. Also, the Arminian view means that God's will cannot include evil. See, here's the problem with Calvinism. I'm gonna get to that in a moment. Calvinism says if everything is already predetermined before we got here, then that means our choices to sin or our choices to do evil were predetermined by God. Now I wish we could not. Now part of that sound good because now because I believe that I can say, well, Lord, it ain't my fault. I'm a Calvinist. It ain't my fault. I seen you determined this way back then. Good thing we got this on many of you, because if it wasn't, we'd be blaming God for everything, right? So while Calvinist says everything was predetermined, unconditional election, already chosen, which means every detail is already determined. Arminianism says, no, hold up. The Arminian view says, no, no, no. If you're saying that, what you're saying is God's will is evil. They said, no, no, no. God's will isn't evil. And here's another thing the Arminians say: God's will isn't always done. Now, here's why it's important. Because a lot of us think God's will gonna always be done. Not necessarily. It wasn't God's will for Adam and Eve to fall in the garden. That wasn't God's will, right? That wasn't God's will. That was not what God desires. Calvinists would say God planned that. Arminian would say God didn't plan that. Adam had choice, but God knew that. Are we making sense? Are y'all hearing the difference? See, I'm glad. See, here's the problem. Every time you cuss somebody out or want to cuss somebody out, that God didn't plan that before you got here, y'all. That's really what the Reform view says. So Arminian says God's will cannot include evil, because God does not design evil. You know, for the book of James, let no man say when he was tempted by that he's tempted by God, he's tempted of evil, because God don't tempt us with evil. Well, Calvinists would say everything's already been determined. So if you're tempted, if there's evil, it was already done. That's what Calvinists or the Reform said. Arminian says no, 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 no. God's will cannot include evil. If I do evil, that's not because God planned it before I got here. Now, Arminian says, now God knew what I was going to do before I got here, but God doesn't plan it. You see the difference? Calvinism says everything is planned. We don't have a choice. Arminian says we do have a choice. We do have freedom, but God is still sovereign and providential. All right? Here's another one. Here's another thing about the Arminian view. Arminians also believe that everything that happens is not what God desires. Everything that happens in our lives is not what God desires. Calvinists would say everything that happens is what God did. And sometimes, y'all, I'm gonna go a little deeper here. Sometimes we're Calvinists and we don't even know it. Let me throw this at you right quick. How sometimes we vacillate between the two. Let me give you an example. Have you ever been to a funeral and somebody was in a car accident, right? And the preacher get up or somebody come and make remarks and say, God don't make no mistakes. Or a person is dead, we just got to accept the will of God. Y'all come here. Don't hang up. Don't hang up. Because I'm talking about you. I'm talking about us. You know, we go through the funeral and say, God is too wise. God is too good to do wrong and too wise to make a mistake. This is the will of God. You ever heard at a funeral before? Hey, y'all, we just got to accept this is God's will. So are we saying that the person who died in an accident, that's what God willed? Did God plan way back then for this person to die in a car accident? And that was God's will. Or mass shooting, 20 people get killed. Hey, y'all, we just got to accept the will of God. So are you telling me that these 20 people that got shot, these kids that got shot in the school down in Florida or Columbine or Newtown, you trying to tell me that was the will of God? God is too good to do wrong. God is too wise to make a mistake. So are you saying to me that God willed that a mass shooter get AR-15 rifles and go into school and go into church and shoot up everybody? Do you not? Now y'all gonna start putting it, right? Some of us have heard it. Some of us have said this is the will of God. Are we saying that every time somebody dies like that, that was the will of God? Every single death, every single accident, every time a plane crashes, every child is born with Down syndrome. God is too good to do wrong. God is too wise to make a mistake. This is the will of God. So you mean to tell me that every single thing that happens, good and bad, God predetermined it way back then? So the drunk driver that's got drunk and hit somebody and killed a family, God is too good to do wrong. God is too wise to make a mistake. That's more Calvinist. I don't believe. Okay, let me come back in here. Are y'all good? Are y'all good? Well, this is good to me. I love this kind of stuff. Do y'all see the differences? Okay, so put that last slide back up there. Good to see you, Ramon Walker. So here's what I believe. Here's what I believe. Let me give Arminianism before I get into my belief. Look at that last one. Good morning, Raymond Walker. Hey, sir, good to see you. Everything that happens is not what God desires. That's what Arminians teach. Every single thing that happens in your life is not what God desires. But that's not what Calvinism teaches. My heart got broken. Oh, God wanted it. I got fired. Oh, God wanted it. My house caught on fire. Oh, that's what God wanted. Oh, my spouse died. Oh, that's what God wanted. Oh, my little brother died. He was 28. That's what God wanted. No. Arminianism says everything that happens is not what God desires. Calvinism says if it happens, it's because God fixed it that way back then. You see what I mean? By sometimes people can have two different views. How we can bring in a hodgepodge, like we believe a little this, a little that. But I want you to know where it came from. Okay? Let me go right quick to. Let me y'all get. Do I got time to do one more thing? Because this is gonna be. We're gonna be here for the next probably month. It's gonna be deep. I need y'all to stay with me. Let me go to the first slide about. Let me come. I was trying to find a good way to do this, and I researched and I'm gonna give you a comparison. I was able to pull this one online that had them side by side, so it made it easier for me to do it like this. It was pretty good. Let me give you a side by side comparison between Calvinism versus Arminianism. Y'all ready? All right. Thank you. That's what I wanted. Now we're gonna compare them right quick, okay? And as I compare these, I want you to think about what you believe, your belief system. Because what you're going to find out is, man, I'm more Calvinist when it comes to this, or I'm more Arminian. And I'm going to show you these things are very different, and why we need to know why we believe what we believe, because some of us don't even know why we believe what we believe, but I want us to dissect it. Okay? Y'all please share this link with somebody. This is good stuff, okay? This ain't fake it till you make it or you got haters. I'm sick of sermons about haters. I want to go deep. Help me understand my theology, all right? So here is Calvinism versus Arminianism. All right, put that Arminianism. Put that M on Arminianism, please. Unless it's too big on the screen, need to be an M on that Arminian. Yeah. No, the first slide. Go back. The first one. Go back to the comparison. No, the very first one you had up there. Comparative beliefs. Yeah. You see at the very top. Like, it needs to be an M on that end of the Arminian, if you can. You see it? All right, let me go. I just saw. Yeah, I want for people taking notes. All right. Uh, compare beliefs of Calvinism versus Arminianism. It needs to be an M on the very end. SM, SM, SM. Yeah, thank you. That's what I want. Thank you. My beliefs is off the chain, baby. Good God Almighty, off the chain. Go ahead on with your bad self. All right, Arminianism. This is a lot. Are y'all with me? Let's break it down. All right, let's break it down. We're gonna break it down. I'm gonna give you the belief. I'm gonna give you a subject, and then we're gonna compare. Okay, what is God's sovereignty? Okay, here's God's sovereignty. The sovereignty of God is the belief that God is in complete control over everything that happens in the universe. Sovereignty. God is in control. God can do what God wants when He wants. Everything that happens, God is over it. He is supreme, and His will is the final cause of all things. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Now, y'all ready? Now, so God's sovereignty. God is in control. God can do what he wants, when he wants, how he wants to do it. That's God's sovereignty. Don't need your vote. Don't need your that God is sovereign. God is in control, right? But there are two different perspectives on sovereignty. First is Calvinism. Let's look at Calvinism. How does Calvinists view sovereignty? Now check it out. In Calvinist thinking, God's sovereignty is unconditional, unlimited, and absolute. All right? God's sovereignty is unconditional, unlimited, and absolute. Now that sounds good when you first hear it. Okay, God, yeah, I agree with that. God got unconditional, unlimited, absolute. Now here's where it gets interesting. So many of you might not have no problem with that first sentence. Like, okay, that's cool. I can believe that. I'm Calvinist. Here's where you got to watch it. Calvinists also believe all things are predetermined by the good pleasure of God's will. Hold it. Slow down. Don't run through that. Don't run through that. Don't fast read this. Slow down. Chill. Stop. Whoa. Red light. Stop sign. Period. Please. Listen to me and read. Reading is fundamental. R-E-A-D. Very important. That second sentence is where it gets tricky. All things are predetermined by the good pleasure of God's will. So God foreknew because of his own planning. That's where it gets deep. All things are predetermined by the good pleasure of God's will. All things? All things. That means who go to heaven? Already God chosen. God determined it by his will. Where you gonna work? Who you gonna marry? All things. If you're gonna put red streaks in your hair, get a purple wig. All things. What kind of car you gonna buy? You wouldn't have bought the car you bought that Honda because God did it. God woke you up and said, go get a Honda. You were pre-wired. What color you gonna get? What color the interior is gonna be? Everything was predetermined. Unconditionally. That every aspect of your life, everything's gonna happen. Everything's gonna happen. Predetermined by his will. What you gonna wear today? Were you gonna eat Fruit Loops or Raisin Bran? Were you gonna have a banana? It was predetermined. God determined for some of us to be fat. It had nothing to do with your workout, your diet. It was already. If you're fat, that was chosen by God. Just go on to Krispy Kreme, do it. Ain't got nothing to do with you. It was all determined by the good pleasure of God's will. God foreknew because he planned it. See, the problem with that, it can make you lazy. And it can make excuses for your behavior. Lord, thank you. I can't do about this fat no way. You made me this way. So let me go on and enjoy it. Because the reason why you knew it because you planned it. So if you believe that everything is predetermined, if you believe that everything is predetermined by the good pleasure of his own will, then why pray? Why am I praying if everything is already predetermined? Why am I worshiping? What you fasting for? Fasting for what? Praying for what? If it's already predetermined, what's the purpose of fasting and prayer? Am I making sense? If it's already predetermined, then here's another thing we say sometimes too, y'all. I don't know if y'all heard this before. Some of us, and see, here's the issue. Some of us say Calvinist things, not knowing what we're really saying. Have you heard this before? What's gonna be, gonna be. Really? Have you ever said this before? What's gonna be, just gonna be. Really? Why is what's going to be just what's going to be? That mean you got no authority? Are you saying it was already predetermined? Have you ever heard that before? Has anybody ever heard that before? You know, hey, it is what it is. What's going to be, going to be. Can't do nothing about it. What's going to be, going to be. You know what I'm saying? The reason why I got this tub around my belly, what's going to be, going to be. It is what it is. Do it while you trying to eat a smoothie for again for breakfast or lunch with spinach and kale, with ginger and banana. Why you doing it? Why don't you just go to IHOP and get you some pancakes and some eggs? Why don't you just do that? Since what's gonna be, gonna be. It is what it is. What? That if what's gonna be, gonna be. It is what it is. So are you saying that what's gonna be, gonna be? Because it was already determined. So what are you saying? Prayer can't change it? What are you saying? You have no choice in the matter? What are you saying? Things can't shift? What are you saying? I thought he gave us keys to the kingdom. Whatever we bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. And whatever we loose on earth shall. I thought that we said. So here's the question. I thought if you ask, it shall be given. Seek, and you shall find. Not. I thought you have not because you ask not. That's what you say. So the question is, are you Arminian or are you Calvinist? Because if what's gonna be, that's Calvinist. You have not because you ask not, that's Arminian. So sometimes we say stuff, we sometimes we speak Calvinistically, sometimes we Arminian. The Calvinist side says all things were predetermined for his good pleasure. God foreknew because he planned it. The problem with that is it absolves it. The problem with that is that it takes away any responsibility for us. It takes away accountability. It takes away our authority. It takes away our power. It takes away our choice. It takes away our freedoms. I don't need to have no altar call because what's gonna be, gonna be. I don't need to tell people come give you life to Christ because it's already been determined. And if God didn't select you, then you can't come. Why open the doors of the church? Because what's gonna be, gonna be. You see the point? That's Calvinism. Now let me give you the Arminian view of this. And I'm gonna let y'all go. I hope this is making sense, y'all. I hope this is making sense. I know it's heavy. Y'all stay, but this is gonna be good for the next month. All right? Now let me share with you the Arminian view of God's sovereignty. Y'all with me? Here's the Arminian view, Arminianism. Y'all with me? We tend to say things because we've heard it and it sounded good. You're so right, CC. But I want us to see where it came from theologically. Because we say stuff that we don't know. And a lot of times what we say, it can come from Calvin, it can be Calvinist, or it can be Arminianism. It can be Calvinism or Arminianism. Here's another one. To the Arminian, now here's the difference. Like I told you now, with sovereignty, with the Calvinists, they believe all things were predetermined. Okay? Good morning, Cheryl from Philadelphia. Good morning to you. How much love to you. Now here's what the Arminian believes about God's sovereignty. God's sovereignty. I like this one. To the Arminian, God is sovereign. God is sovereign, but has limited his control in correspondence with man's freedoms and response. Woo! Did y'all see the difference? To the Arminian, God is sovereign. Okay, so in both views, God is sovereign. But there's a difference in how the Arminian views sovereignty, Arminianism views sovereignty, and how Calvinism views sovereignty. Go back to Calvinism for a minute. I want you to see the difference. Can you go back to the previous slide? I want to go back to that Calvinism to show you the difference. Now, look what it says in Calvinist thing. God's sovereignty is unconditional, unlimited. So Calvinism says through God's sovereignty, his sovereignty is unlimited, unconditional, and absolute. Now go to the Arminianism. Go to Arminianism. Arminianism says God is sovereign, but God has limited his control in correspondence with man's freedoms and with man's freedom and response. What does that mean? That simply means that although Arminianism says God is sovereign, but he has limited his control based upon freedom in your response. Now please be clear on this though. God limits his control based upon your response and your freedom. Okay, what does that mean? That he has limited his control. So that the difference between he has limited control. Listen carefully. I want you to get this right. Thank you for that, Tina, because I want to make sure it's clear. God is sovereign, but has limited control. Make sure I explain this clearly, because that's deep right there. Because that I gotta be careful that you hear what I'm saying. God is sovereign, but he has limited his control. He has limited his control. Not that God has limited control. God is sovereign, but he has limited his control. God limits his own control. Not that God has limited control. God is in total control, but God has limited his control. He's limited his control in correspondence to man's freedom and response. Did y'all hear the difference? I do not believe that God has limited control. God is in total control. But relative to my choices and my freedoms, God will not control. God will limit his control over my thoughts, over my freedoms and my responses. What I mean by that? Please make sure y'all get this now. Y'all, I need y'all to holler at me right now, because Tina just scared me. God's control is not limited. God is in total control. God has total control. But this is what God does. What God does is relative to my choices. When I came out here this morning, God limited his control relative to me putting this shirt on. God didn't pick me out the bed, take me to my closet, and move my hand up and make me get this shirt. Right? Right. So God is in control. It's not that God. It's not that God could not have made me pick out the shirt, another shirt. But God limited his control to give me the choice and me the freedom to choose the shirt I want to wear. So not that God has limited control, but God has limited his control. When I went and got gas the other day, God didn't control me and make me go to QT. God didn't say, go to QT and don't go to Exxon. Go to BP, don't go to Racetrack. That's it. He has limited his control based upon your actions. It ain't that when I got ready to go to Chick-fil-A and I needed to order a salad. God didn't say, order the Cobb salad. God didn't do that. God gave me the choice to order the Cobb salad. Right? If that was the case, every time I want to get a milkshake, or so when I want to go to Krispy Kreme, right? When I'm riding, I see the Hot 99 sign. God don't make my car go by it. God don't make my car go by it. God limits his control, and if I want to put up in Krispy Kreme to get that stuff that ain't no good for me, God will let me do that, even though it may not. See, so God ain't gonna make that choice for me. He limits his control. Now, is he still in control of my car? In control of me? Yes, he is. But God will limit his control to give me the freedom to respond how I want to respond. Even though he's sovereign, even though he's got all power, he will limit his power and limit his control so I can make the choice that I want to make. Now, if I make a choice for me that's bad, I can't blame God. Calvinism says that it was God that said, order the Cobb salad, stay away from Krispy Kreme, put on this blue shirt, go to Racetrack. No. God, it wasn't in God didn't pre-design, right? God gives us free will because he loves us. He gives us choice. Thank you, Emmanuel. You own it, brother. That's it. Beautiful. Whether we want to live, love it. Even though the choice is ours, God is in control. But God will limit his control. If you wanted to give a dude your phone number, if you wanted to holler at a girl, God ain't gonna say, don't give him the number. You got a choice to do it. God will limit his control in correspondence with our freedoms and our responses. Okay? Now, if you pray, God can give you clarity, give you direction. But Calvinism says it's already determined. Arminianism says God will limit his control. So God's decrees are associated with his foreknowledge. Now let me share this. Now, does this mean that God doesn't know what my choices are? Absolutely. God knew way back then what we'd be doing today, because God is omniscient. God knew that I was. God knew I was. God knew that I would. God knew I would get the Cobb salad and not the 12-count combo with Polynesian honey mustard and large lemonade. God knew that. God knew. God knew I wanted to get the number one, but get the deluxe with the with the lettuce and tomato on it. God knew that. But God also knew that I would use good wisdom and get the Cobb salad with light vinaigrette. God knew it. Did God know my decision? God knew this way back then. Everything about my life, God knew it. But although God knew it, he limited his control so I can make that decision. That's the Arminian view. So I can't say at Chick-fil-A, what's going to be, going to be. God already fixed it. What's going to be. Since God already ordered me, since God already ordained I'm going to get this spicy deluxe combo, what's going to be. Since God already ordained that I can upsize it and get it large, what's going to be. It is what it is. Right? So Arminianism says that God is in control, but he limits his power. Not that he has unlimited power, not that he has limited power, but he intentionally limits his power to give us the choice to do what we're going to do. Calvinism says you have no right, you have no say in the matter. Arminianism says you do have a say in the matter. That makes sense? I need to quit today. I'm over my time. This is gonna be a wild ride next month. I can tell you this is gonna be deep. Thank y'all for responding. Those who did respond, I hope y'all got it. I'm doing my best I'm doing my best. He's a loving God till I have our choice. That's enough. Calvinism says he loves you. Calvinism says he loves you. That's why he decided for you, because you mess it up. It's deep because we're gonna go back and forth, right? Right? Does it make sense? So God is sovereign. God is in control. This is Arminianism. But God he will limit his control over our choices, our freedoms, and our responses. So you can make it for yourself. We'll talk more. Y'all please log on. Please don't stay away next Friday because it's going to get deeper. I promise I'm going to do better. It's just hard for me to teach this and not seeing your faces to see, are you getting it? Do you have questions? It's hard. It's because it's heavy. I want to make sure it's clear. It's got to be crystal clear. So we're talking about Arminianism versus Calvinism. And you can check this out. You can Google what I'm saying. Everything I'm telling you is systematic theology. I hope y'all got it. And because sometimes we can be Calvinists and not even know it. Sometimes we sound like we're Arminian. Sometimes we sound like we're Calvinists. But you're gonna. I think if you stay with me, you're gonna enjoy this. It's gonna be very enlightening. And y'all ride with me for the next couple weeks on Fridays, because we're gonna go there. It's gonna be very deep now, and it's gonna challenge. I'm gonna push you. Kind of started light today, but I'm gonna be pushing you. So you say you want to go deeper dive. The next month gonna be deep. So make sure you bring your scuba diving gear with you, because we're gonna be going down there, and I just need you to, part of me says don't do it because it's online and I can't, but it's deeper dive. I'm gonna do my best to go deep and make sure we don't drown. All right. I love y'all, and thank y'all for tuning in today. I'm gonna try to teach it without putting myself in it to the very end, so I can let the ideas wrestle. But I don't want to scare y'all. I want y'all to be misled. I want y'all to get the wrong impression. I want to make sure that you're learning right, correct theology, orthodox theology. But I'm trying to share with you, this debate has lasted since the 1500s, and it's not going anywhere. Because both sides, that's some, you'll see. So y'all ride with now. Please stay on the ride. Bring your scuba down again, because it's gonna get good. It's gonna get better. All right, I gotta let y'all go. And but I'm thankful that God has given me, that God has limited his power over my responses and given us to choose. And because of that, today I've decided I'm going to get me a smoothie. I'll see y'all next time. We'll be back tonight, 11 o'clock for Friday Night Live. Hope y'all have a blessed day. I enjoyed this. I love this. This kind of stuff here. I can do this all day. I love this more than preaching. I love this. Thank y'all for sharing with me today. Gotta let y'all go, but as always, remember this: if you'll be good to God, God will be good to you. Till next time, peace.